amended and supplemented Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of the State of New Jersey, 1975. Notice of this meeting is given by the adopting meeting schedule, location, time, and date, sending copies to the home unit, posting in the Borough Hall, filing a copy with the Borough Clerk within 7 days following the annual organization meeting of this body. I'd like to ask you now to rise for a invocation of Councilman Rasmus, and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, I just want to thank everyone that came out for Earth Day. On Saturday, we had a nice crowd of people. We did a beautiful cleanup by the Greenway, and I appreciate everyone's time and effort. And let's take a moment now to contemplate the matters at hand tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Katie, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Wallace.
Here.
Councilwoman Rasmussen.
Here.
Councilwoman Insero.
Here.
Councilman Grazel.
Here.
Councilman Camerano.
Here.
Council President Muldoon.
Here. Okay. Could we have a motion for the agenda session?
I move that we open the agenda session.
Okay, there is an item that we have to add to our agenda. Dennis, could you talk about that item? I think it's Resolution 2013-98.
We need a second, Mayor?
Oh, sorry, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Sure, Mayor. It's Resolution 2013-98. Essentially what it is it's the resolution accepting the bids. As you may recall, I think it was in February, you authorized the sale of vehicles, borough vehicles that were no longer necessary for public purposes. You also authorized the minimum bid amounts. The minimum bid amounts were, at the time, based upon what we believed the scrap costs. So the bids would start there and move their way up. You'll see the first portion of the resolution deals with, we received 7 bid amounts that were higher than the minimum bid amounts, and so you'll be accepting those bid awards, or accepting those bids for 7 of them. However, on the remaining 7, you did not receive the minimum bid amounts on all 7. There were a couple you did receive minimum bid amounts, but that wasn't at the public auction. And because they at the public auction, you didn't receive the minimum bid amount, and you thereafter received proposals to purchase them for something that was lower than the minimum bid amount. There were different terms to the sale. So what the resolution also does is it authorizes the sale of the remaining 7 vehicles and lowers the bid amounts, the minimum bid amounts, to correctly reflect what the scrap costs would be. And you'll see, just so you have reference, the initial starting bid is in the first or the 4th column over, and the new starting bid is in the 5th column over. So you could just see what the difference of the amounts were. It's not a lot. Like one goes from 4,000 to 3,200, one goes from 2,000 to 1,500, one goes from 2,000 to 1,500. But the same terms and conditions of the sale will apply to the remaining 7 vehicles.
Okay. So I'm asking the council to add that to your consent agenda, and as item, I guess that would be 23, Resolution 2013-98. Okay. Any other items for the agenda?
Motion.
Take a motion.
Yes.
Yeah. So I move that we add item number 23, resolution number 2013-98.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, any other items for the agenda session?
Yes, I have two items. The first item is I'd like to bring up the idea of planting standards when a residence is either improved or a new residence is constructed. Any of the landscaping that's planted, I really think we need to have someone check on how they're being planted, because I went around with someone from the Shade Tree Commission looking at some of the newer built houses where the trees and shrubs were dying, and we asked permission of the owners to look at it, and we kind of dug a little around it, and we found out that they weren't taken out of burlap, they weren't taken out of pots, they were just put in the ground. And to me, that's a waste of our taxpayers' money when they buy a house, and that's included in the cost of the house. I think we need to take a look and make sure that the planting is done properly.
Bill, do you have any suggestion on that?
Well, I haven't had, yes, I'm going to talk to Chris about that tomorrow. His and my schedules haven't meshed, so Councilman Rasmussen did bring that up to me last week, and we are going to take a look at what we can do. It may already be covered somewhere. I'm just not aware of it. Typically, when a project is done and someone is looking for a release of their bonds and/or a certificate of occupancy, the planner or his representative, most likely in this case it would be Chris, would go and look to see whether the plantings were installed as per the plans and any special arrangements were met. So we might need to, it might just be something that we need to send someone out to do, as Councilman Rasmussen says, dig around a little to see how they're planted. And if we need something more stringent in the land development ordinance, we can do that too.
Okay, and you have a second item.
I also have a second one. I noticed when I was doing the cleanup during Earth Day, right along where Hillside Cemetery was, that there are thousands of pots that are discarded there. And I was just wondering if we could reach out to them somehow to see, you know, maybe the people that work there aren't doing it, maybe families, when they see something getting old and dying, they toss it, you know, down the hill to the greenway. And I was wondering if maybe we could speak with them to see if they could put some kind of garbage containers there so that people, instead of throwing them down the hill, could probably just throw them in a garbage can somewhere that it could be removed properly.
Okay,
So, and that's it.
okay, any other items?
I can take care of that.
They have
You can
plenty of
take it-
garbage,
you-
they
hold-
do
hold on-
have plenty
hold
of
on a
garbage
second.
cans there, people don't
Hold on a
take care of
second, please. You
I'll
okay?
take care of that.
You'll take care of that? Thank you.
Sorry.
Any other item?
I have one just a quick update. Excuse me. Last week, the mayor and I met with the fire chief and discussed a few issues. One, I think coming out of the last council meeting when Councilman Camerano talked about the state co-op or state buying association, they had done some research into that and found another co-op. It's called it's HGAC. It's a co-op based out of Houston, Galveston, Texas, that it's pretty broad. It isn't just for fire-related equipment. It's all sorts of services and equipment that municipalities purchase. And there are about 15 to 20 New Jersey cities, municipalities, counties, and New Jersey Transit are members of that buying co-op. So the fire chief is looking into that. He's getting some more information. There's no cost to join it, and I think because there is no cost and the borough could possibly take advantage of it from many other departments, I think I would like to, maybe at the next meeting, do a resolution to proceed in joining. Again, there's no cost to join it, but obviously a lot of other New Jersey municipalities are taking advantage of it, and it could be obviously looking into it as a possibility of it being a more cost-effective way to acquire the fire truck. So,
Right. And I think the borough engineer was
oh
part
yes,
of that
yes,
group.
he was familiar with it too.
And he
yes.
is using it in other towns
yeah.
that he represents. So I think it's something to look at. And he said you could even buy paper and other items. It goes all throughout. It's not just equipment, but DPW equipment, fire equipment, and, you know, office supplies and stuff that...
Police cars?
Police cars, everything. So
It would be something that we should look into, since there's no cost. It would just be a resolution and filling out an application, which looked to be 1 page long.
I think you have the application
Yeah,
already, right?
and it seems to be a way to look at it and go. All right, so we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Any other items? Could I have a motion to close?
Your
Oh,
Honor,
sorry.
before you do, I just want to ask that we remove Resolution 2013-97, it's number 22, from the consent agenda.
Well, to deal with separately, right?
Yeah,
Separate
just to
vote.
deal with this separately.
Okay.
Okay. Need a motion or just do
Okay,
we
Do that, okay.
so we'll remove that one.
Yep.
Okay. Could I have a motion to close the agenda
I
session?
move we close the agenda session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we now have a budget discussion. Our Director of Public Works, Fred Hall. Fred, if you come up for a few minutes and just talk to us a little bit about the budget. I wanted to compliment you. I think it's 1 year now that we've been doing the single stream recycling. How's it going?
It's going good. I think we started last April, so, yeah, 1 year. I had a little bit of kinks in the beginning portions of it, especially getting compliance from a lot of the residents, trying to get on board with a new program. Once everyone got on board with it, it's been working well. There's nothing better than having 1 day of service per resident for the quadrants. Makes it so much easier for everybody.
Okay, has our recycling gone up or our waste going to the dumps
We
gone
were
down?
looking at that, and it's actually, it's pretty stable. It remains at like 44%.
Okay.
I don't know why. I mean, the tonnage is the tonnage. It is what it is for the trash. It's usually like, 5,000 tons a year. But the one good savings about it, though, is the fact that there's less trucks that go on the road. There's less injuries. There's less fuel. It's much more economical altogether. It's better for our department, with the staffing issues. And for the most part, I think everybody in town likes it. It works well.
Yeah, I haven't heard any complaints. I've heard a lot of compliments.
Right.
The only thing I noticed is, people have to make sure when there's a holiday that they realize there is a holiday, and so that bumps the schedule a little bit.
Otherwise, we're doing double work the next day.
Yeah, but overall, I think it's been a big success. People find it to be easier to do, and I think it's been handled very well by your department and the workers. I appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you.
We notice also there's a capital for the pumping station. Could you explain that just a little bit?
Well, a couple of years ago, we started having problems with the Jersey Avenue pump station. There was an issue with our number 3 pump. It's our biggest pump. That's what we really need if we have, heavy floods. That broke down. We had to get it repaired. While we took it out to get it repaired, there's 2 different valves that have to be closed down. They're called gate valves. One of them leads to the force main, which is what exits out through the pump station and ends its way up in Sayreville. We closed that valve out. It wasn't a problem. We took the pump out, we sent it out, had it repaired. When we brought it back, to put it back into the base, which is called a volute, we put everything together, bolted it down, and opened up that valve, and it wouldn't open. It remained in the closed position. It's old. It was, the building was built in 1958, I believe it was. So these parts are rusting out. They've reached their life expectancy, so in order to get that valve repaired, we had to do some work on the outside of the pump station. And we had to install a bypass system so that we can work around that while we were having some internal work done. So part of the capital project that we've come up with, Bill and I have worked on it, it's to put a line stop in the bypass system outside of the building so we can bypass all the sewage that's coming in and at the same time do internal work. And I think it's like about $125,000 for the project. And it's a must. It has to be done because if that building is not operating, either is Metuchen.
Okay.
if you know what I mean.
Now, just for the public's knowledge and council people's knowledge, because I've been in the building, there are 3 pumps.
Correct.
2 are electric and 1 is gas-fired, right?
No.
No?
The pumps are all electric.
Oh, they're all electric?
Correct.
Okay, there's no backup to go to gas or something like that?
No, the only backup we have is just a generator.
Okay, so
That's
now we
where
have a
if there's a
backup
problem with the electric, the generator comes on.
Okay,
And now that we have a bypass system, if we ever did have a problem with that, we can use, like we had with pumping services, we had it set up for Hurricane Sandy. We had it all set up just in case. Fortunately, we didn't have to use it because it wasn't a flooding issue. But should that happen, we can just get a bypass system, put it outside, and then we can just use the pump for the bypass and you know, the pump and just, you know, discharge it that way.
okay. And now, that's not our only pumping station.
No, there's actually 3 of them. There's one on Orchard Avenue, and then there's a smaller one on Willow Road.
Okay,
Yeah.
just for the public's
Yeah.
knowledge and the council's
Right, and
knowledge.
those are newer ones. Orchard Street, I think, was completed in 2000, I believe it was.
Okay,
Different type of a system, different type of submersible pumps. But, yeah, the problem with Jersey Avenue Pump Station, it is like, you know, constructed 1958, and it does need a lot of work on the inside with gate valves, check valves, pumps. There's a lot of erosion, you know, because of condensation and, you know, gases,
okay.
so.
Anyone else have a question for Fred?
Yeah, I do. How much of a restoration are you going to get with this repair? Are you going to be back again in the near future for the same pumping station?
With this
It's-
particular pump station?
Yeah, in other words, it sounds like you're saying you're doing some patchwork repairs, but it's old and the parts are going. Are we going to have to make more investments in the future?
No, I mean, what's downstairs in that pump station are 3 pumps that sit on volutes, and there's gate valves. Once those valves and those pumps are changed out, it's not like a brand-new pump station, but it's close to it.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, another 50 years.
It'll last, yeah, I'll be gone before that.
Yeah, we'll all be gone, I think.
Well, the 2,000 you mentioned about Orchard Street, wasn't that a complete rebuild at that time for that station?
Complete rebuilt.
Rebuild,
yes,
right, yes.
Right.
Yeah,
That
2000
one
was a complete
yeah,
rebuild.
They
Complete
knocked the
rebuild.
whole thing down,
Yep.
except for the well outside,
Yeah,
the wet well, and put in, you know, the whole building was constructed new.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that definitely had to be done, and that services that portion of town, but Jersey Ave has a bigger portion of town.
Well, here, see, the problem with that is that, yes, that's correct. That services the south side of Metuchen. But everything from the south side of Metuchen is pumped down to the Jersey Avenue pump station.
Okay,
So everything from the south side and north side goes into that station. So it's essential that these repairs be made.
okay,
I have a question, Mayor.
yeah.
Will residents notice anything while this work is being done?
No, not at all.
No, okay.
Won't affect anything.
Okay.
Right.
Any other questions? Fred, I want to thank you. Please relay to the entire staff, entire group, the job that you do is really admirable. We got us through many storms, Sandy being the latest one, let's hope. Yeah, well, I know it won't be the last, but, and we do see such a, you know, a response from the residents because of it. I think the single stream has been a huge plus.
Yes.
With people satisfied, making life easier, making it more efficient, making it more cost efficient for us. You know, just last week, for example, most people don't know, you had the shredder thing on Saturday. You also had a group involved with the Earth Day, constantly on the go with things. So, but thank you. Please relay that to all of us.
We have a small department, but they do an outstanding job.
Yeah.
They do.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Next, we have the library. Good evening.
Good evening.
We just wanted to spend a few minutes with you and talk about some of the things, if you have anything to tell us. I'm very excited about this children's room being done. We've been waiting a while, and so, Mrs. Waldron, I think you and your group should be complimented to get this moving. Are there any other things that we should know about? Or
We are, as you said, we are super excited, the Board of Trustees, the library, about this great project that's underway. If you went to the library today, there's cones blocking the staircase because the whole room has now been gutted and is in the process of its restoration. And it's going to be a phenomenal space once we get there, which our hope is that that will happen by the end of June. We've got electricians in, we've got painters coming next week, rugs are being ordered, so there's new shelving. It's going to be a great space for the children of our community to come and learn and read. So we're really just thrilled that this is happening and it's underway, and it's going to be hopefully open for business by the end of June.
And I'm going to suggest that when it is done, we have a ribbon cutting and have METV there.
Okay.
And invite the mayor and council so that we could publicize it for the public.
Great.
Because as you said, we waited a while, but it's coming to fruition, and we really want to make sure of that. I also understand that you've changed the policy with overtime for Sundays.
Yeah, as we were here last year, we did go back as a board and take that. We've had to take a real hard look at our budget. As you've seen, again, we've presented our 2013 budget to you tonight, but that was something the board really had to take a hard look at to try and make ends meet. So that was taken off the table, so overtime is now not available to the workers at the moment for staffing. And we're continuing to work through ways to look at our budget in an efficient and effective way to manage what's in front of us. We've got the 1/3 of a mil state funding, and we're going to make it work. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilman?
Your Honor, just as a liaison and as a board member at the library, I really have to acknowledge all the hard work. It's been about 2 years in the planning, visiting, working with people, and the board members have really driven this project from day one and done a tremendous job with it. It's a lot of time and energy and a lot of hours that they've been putting in. I was in there last week, and the room's empty. It's a huge room. You never realized it with everything in there. But I do think it'll be a tremendous asset to the younger children in the community, and it's just be a welcome change for a room that, it's a beautiful room, it's a beautiful part of the library. Hopefully we'll be able to keep it that way for many years to come. But it'll be a huge improvement, and it wouldn't have happened but for the hard work of the board members who, as we all sometimes forget, are all volunteers, so they give a lot of their time. The other challenge the library has faced is the diminishing amount of money with the state formula that we're required to give. I think this is the third year in a row. Is it the third?
The
Fifth year in a row, where that number has gone down. And we've been able to maintain the services at the library, which is a tribute to folks here today.
Yeah.
It's getting harder,
Yeah.
but I think they are really looking at the way the library functions from the top down and just trying to find ways to continue to make it work in more challenging times. So thank you is really what I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, please
Thank you.
relay the thank you from the mayor and from the entire council. And please, don't forget, we want to have a ribbon cutting. Really publicize this opening when it happens.
We'll do. We'll make that happen. I think it's going to be a great celebration. It's really what I learned is we've taken down the bones of the room. It's a gem of the community. It's really a beautifully, architecturally, just a wonderful, piece of building in our community. So I'm excited about it coming to life again. So we'll make that happen.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to comment, I'm looking at the first line here of the sheet that you gave us, and way at the end it says, "No raises for staff." Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Wow, I mean, not them saying I think it's wonderful. Of course, no one thinks it's wonderful not giving people a raise, but it's just wonderful that people are willing to make a sacrifice, for the library and kind of hang in there tough. I think it's great of the people.
Yeah.
Thank you again. We appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
I know.
Mayor, I have a request, with the students here and their parents, maybe we can just do a swap here, have them go, and then we'll do the insurance
Yes.
discussion.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith? Yes, sir. You're on. You've been waiting on deck. Now you're gonna hit cleanup.
Metaphor, huh?
Okay, well, I know that you coach a little bit of baseball, right?
Yeah, a little bit, right, Mr. Camerano?
Yeah, and my son who plays for him made me promise I would remind everybody it is the, as of now, undefeated JV team.
Oh, okay.
Of course, they haven't played that many games, but they are undefeated.
Only 4, but it's a good start. First of all, I want to thank you guys for having us here, Mayor Vahala, and especially Mr. Camerano, as well as all of you, because we've worked pretty closely over the last, I guess, month or so with this, with the students. The students have been working on a project called Project Citizen. Project Citizen, for those of you who remember last year when I had one of my classes here, is a citizenship-based unit where the students become empowered and they learn how to become part of the policymaking process, even at such a young age, even in 6th grade. And the purpose of the course is so when they graduate 6th grade and they move on from life studies, which is the course they're in with me, they have the ability to impact their community at any level because they've learned how to do it with firsthand experience. And we all know firsthand experience is great for the students and great for anybody who wants to learn something new. So it's very exciting for them. A couple thank yous before we get to the students. Like I said, to you, Mr. Mayor, the council, Mr. Camerano, for your time and all those emails back and forth with me and relaying it to them and them giving me feedback and getting it back to you. I really appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Hall, who is just here. Over the last couple weeks, Mr. Hall and I have been exchanging a lot of phone calls and emails as well from the students and what they wanted to ask him, as he's Department of Public Works. We wanted to make sure they reached out to him as well. We need to obviously thank Ms. Glotz, Mr. Porowski, my supervisor at the high school. They do a great job. They helped us put on a Project Citizen showcase for all of the students in my life studies class. 3rd cycle, there will be another one in the 4th cycle coming up. But they presented there, so this should be pretty old for them right now. They know what they should be doing. Owen Harvey, our tech guy, also deserves a little thank you for setting up the computer and the projector here for us. Parents, thank you very much for getting your kids to school early. Over the last couple weeks since the cycle ended, I don't have them presently. So they've been coming in the morning. They've come 4 mornings, really early at 7:30, practice for about a half hour or so. So I appreciate their effort for that, and parents, you guys as well. You deserve a tremendous thanks. And lastly is to the students. This is the smallest class that I teach, 11 students. It's the smallest group that I have right now. And even though they were small, they were a little challenging at times, as they would definitely admit, and their parents are probably nodding and agreeing. But they were a great group to work with, and they worked really hard. The fact that they had to roll with a couple different things throughout the cycle, dealing with being a small class, more work for everybody to do, and they really stepped up. And they're demonstrating that again tonight. They will demonstrate that. So without any further ado, I would like to bring up the first group of students to present. All right, there's going to be 4 groups presenting in this little group of 11 right here. They're going to go through their presentation. I'll be clicking the slides to move it along for them. And here we go. First group, come on up.
If anybody wants to take pictures, you can come up front. Doesn't matter. You must. If it gives you a better angle, feel free. Sorry, Mayor.
Examining the Problem by Annie Hamilton, Maya Bustamante, and Greg Shaver. The problem that we want to study is repainting and adding more crosswalks. This problem is very serious. People need to see the crosswalks, and people need to be safe. Where some of the crosswalks are located are Main Street and New Street, Main Street and Hillside Avenue, Main Street and Woodbridge Avenue. Crosswalks by the schools are Lake Avenue and Brunswick Avenue, Grove Avenue and Norris Avenue, Simpson Place and Amboy Avenue, Durham Avenue and Main Street, Brunswick Avenue and New Street, West Walnut Street and Main Street.
The Borough Council of Metuchen should be the ones to take action on this problem and change the situation of crosswalks. Existing laws and policies for dealing with this problem are that specific crosswalks are repainted every year in Metuchen, and cars must stop at crosswalks when a pedestrian is crossing. Crosswalks in Metuchen have flags, lights, bells, or signs. But are these laws and policies adequate? Normal laws and policies for dealing with crosswalks are not adequate because people get hit by cars yearly anyway. Disagreements against our policy are that the crosswalks aren't easy to see, so people just speed through them. We think that police officers and the Metuchen Borough Council would help determine which crosswalks need repainting and which ones should be added.
We think that the police officers and the Metuchen Borough Council would help determine which crosswalks need to be repainted and which ones should be added. Enforcing the law. The police officers are trying to enforce the law of car stopping when a pedestrian is crossing the street. Advantages. The citizens of Metuchen listen to the police officers, so the police officers have an advantage over the citizens. The Department of Public Works hand paints crosswalks using regular paint and spent $400 on paint last year, which fades easily. These are the websites that we used. Thank you very much. Here is task 2.
Examining alternative policies. Requirements for the policy. These are the rules we follow to come up with each policy. State the policy or suggested policy. Identify the individual or group that is proposing the policy. Identify the advantages of this proposed policy. Identify the disadvantages of this proposed policy. Identify other individuals or groups in the community who are likely to support this policy. And identify other individuals or groups in the community who are likely to oppose this policy. Our first idea is speed bumps and humps. It could slow down cars on busy roads, but it could also ruin people's cars. Kids and parents could support it because it would keep them safe, and the council should too because it's cheap. Teenagers or young adults could oppose it who just got their license because they drive fast. Our second idea is neon paint for crosswalks. The class came up with it and is easier to see. The paint might come off. Kids and parents could support it because the neon paint will keep them safe. And the Metuchen Borough Council might oppose it because it might not work. And Mr. Camerano said that we can't use neon paint.
Against state law.
Another one of our ideas is crosswalks painted white. The class came up with it and it could easily be seen during the day and night, but the white could fade easily. The parents could support it and the kids could oppose it because it could fade easily. Our last idea is reflectors / lights. The class came up with it and it could catch drivers' attention, but it's also tough to maintain and it costs $18,000 through $35,000. Citizens in the community could support it, but the town council might oppose it because they're staying away from them, according to Mr. Camerano. These are the sources we use to gather our information. Thank you and have a great day.
I don't see Councilman Camerano cited there on your sources. Update that.
Ariel Baser, McKenna Tremonton, Bridget O'Connor, and I created Proposing a Public Policy. We started with many policies and ended with just one. This shows how difficult the policymaking process can be. The public policy to deal with this problem is to repaint crosswalks at least once a year and get a company to paint main crosswalks by machine because it is too difficult for some or help to do by hand. The main crosswalks we want repainted are Main and Woodbridge, New Street and Main Street, Pearl Street and New Street, and all the crosswalks near the schools.
The level of government that would help us deal with this problem would be the Metuchen Borough Council. We considered using reflective paint. Some pros are that it's bright and easy to see, visible day and night, and it lasts longer than regular paint. Some cons are that it costs more than regular paint, and it may not be visible in certain weather conditions.
Some disadvantages of this policy are We'll have to close roads for painting. People will have to be hired yearly for painting. It will cost money to buy paints, and we can't get brighter colors for crosswalks. Some advantages of this policy are there'll be less accidents, the crosswalks will come into view quicker, and its white color will be visible both night and day.
This policy is constitutional because people have the right to be away from harm, and it takes away nobody's rights. These are our works cited for our presentation. Thank you. Here's Group 4.
Developing an Action Plan by Isabel Gementis, Teresa Tomasco, and Kylie Rossler. The main activities of our plan were to talk to the Metuchen Department of Public Works, identify places that need crosswalks. We were going to talk to the Metuchen Borough Council, which we are now, and we're going to talk to the citizens of Metuchen. People who may support us are the Metuchen Board of Education, the Metuchen Borough Council, the firefighters, the police officers, and the parents, and the citizens of Metuchen.
We can gain their support by showing the safety problems involved with the crosswalks being dull. We can tell them the advantages, which is keeping the citizens safe from further harm. We can tell them the disadvantages about not getting more crosswalks and repainting some too. The Metuchen Borough, people who may oppose our policy are the Metuchen Board of Education, the police officers, because they would have to work and instruct detours in traffic when crosswalks are being painted. Citizens of Metuchen, because they were opposed because they're lead to detours in traffic when the crosswalks are being repainted too. And they can also think it can be unnecessary money. We might be able to gain their support from these individuals and groups by stating the facts about identifying and repainting crosswalks in our town, state some of the past accidents that have involved our pedestrians, like in 2007, there were 2 pedestrians involved in a fatal accident.
We might be able to gain their support from these individuals and groups by stating the advantages of repainting the crosswalks and stating the disadvantages of not getting the crosswalks repainted. This is our work cited for our presentation.
Wow.
Thank you, have a great night, and don't hit anyone at a crosswalk.
Mr. Smith, thank you very much, and thank all of your students for the presentation. It was great. We will look into as many of the matters that we can as possible.
Thank you.
Working with our Traffic and Transportation Committee, we have started the flag crosswalks, and we are looking to evaluate how those are working. But I think that the painting in some areas might be a plus for us.
Yeah, thank you. We were, in our discussions back and forth with Mr. Camerano, we were talking about the flags a little bit, and when I brought it to the students, they wanted to go a little further than that. You can see from when Ethan presented his group slides, there were a lot of ideas that they had, and that was one of the things they had a difficult time with during this process, was seeing that there's so many things that might have to be done over and over and things that can't work. So it was a good learning experience for them. And I thank you for, being willing to help and listen to them. That really means a lot.
Your Honor,
Thank you.
just for the record, I like the idea of the fluorescent crosswalk, but there is a state law that prohibits it.
Now, does the state law prohibit colors?
Yeah. Yep.
Except for maybe yellow, because we say
Can you do
yellow.
that white in the yellow?
All supposed to be white. All crosswalks have to be white, and there's a sprinkly stuff they put in the paint's white that makes it a little reflective.
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at it. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Hall was saying a lot of times they use like a reflective paint, latex paint, and it's thicker so it stays on longer. And they were very excited about the idea of the bright neon-colored crosswalks. If you walk through the halls of the middle school, you'll see all those neon colors being worn: the hot pink, the hot orange, the yellow. So it's definitely something that's in their minds, and they took that and wanted to apply it to the task. It was just unfortunate. They were just as excited as they were to propose that idea. They were just as upset when they found out that it was the state law.
Well, many times the public is ahead of the state regulation and government. If it were to help, even in 1 or 2 cases, it might be worth looking at. But we're kind of nature of the state, we could do what we can legally without having issues. But I know that, for example, one of the intersections where you come into town, coming up by Penn Avenue, where it says pedestrian crossing, I'd like to see that painted in some of the other areas, like on Route 27 and some of the other areas, because I think that gives more notice to people that there is a crossing, and I think that would be more effective, too. But I thank your students, and I thank you, Mr. Smith, for all of the effort that you've put forth.
I'd like to just express my thanks to you and the students for doing this. And I can tell from the presentation and the process that you went through that dealing with public policy sometimes gets complex. You guys had to figure out advantages, disadvantages, pros and cons, and all that. But I think it's refreshing for me to hear you guys do this, because sometimes we get so caught up in the complexities of, well, it's a county road and this, all this stuff that just gets in our way of taking action. I think you've sort of made it clear, and I like the way you focused on one thing, and I think we can take some lessons from what you've done. And this whole issue of pedestrian safety is something that is not going away. And as the mayor mentioned, we're working through our various channels to improve the situation. And this, I guess, is one step. I think the flags that we've talked about, no one step is going to solve the problem. But I think when we coordinate the efforts, flags in some places, lighted crosswalks, any place where there is a crosswalk, it needs to be painted. So I appreciate your work and giving us some clarity, and we need to take action. So thank you.
And I'd like to make a comment also. I think this presentation was fabulous. It was just so well thought out. It was great. And what I really liked is that you actually focused on crosswalks, because I think a lot of times people in Metuchen, being in a hurry sometimes, trying to get somewhere, don't walk to the crosswalks to cross. They come in between cars. They bring their children in between cars where they should go to the crosswalks. And I think you kids are great leaders bringing this idea out, and I hope that you encourage your fellow students and family members to use the crosswalks instead of going between the cars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Very good job. Very good job.
Oh, I'm blaming you. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you. Good job again.
Good job.
Thank you. I'll take him outside so it's not too noisy.
It's all right.
Now make them say for the rest of the meeting. Real simple.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be outside from here, because, trust me, they're my smallest class, but they're loud.
Do you want to shut your computer down if you're...
Sorry?
Do you want to shut your computer down?
Hey, I guess I'll just shut it down and turn it off, because I think our tech guy's going to come and do this tomorrow. Take it away. I didn't set this up. If I had set this up, it wouldn't be working.
Mr. Atkinson, why don't you come up front? I understand you have some other information for us. Just so you have a mic so that you can be picked up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just wanted to clarify some items that we discussed in our last meeting of April 1st, discussing with Bill and some of your concerns. Still recommending the reinsurance move from the current carrier to U.S. Fire, as well as increasing the individual liability, the individual stop-loss liability from $50,000 to $60,000, keeping the aggregate specific quarter at $95,000. And doing that will increase our fixed costs by about 13%, and the overall claim liability would increase by 8%, which would give the worst-case scenario if we had an unbelievably terrible year, a 9% increase from where we are today to in next year's budget. The other
A question,
Yeah.
so I'm following all this. So the 13% increase in the fixed cost.
Yes.
The fixed cost is,
It's all the administrative fees, the reinsurance premium, the network access and utilization review. It's all the fixed component pieces of the plan, which would be, you know, our QualCare network fees, my firm's fees,
so more
and the reinsurance.
administrative type? Like, it's not a reimbursement, it's the...
It's just the straight fix. It's the reinsurance premium that we pay the carrier, the fee to IDA to administer the plan, and the fees to QualCare for the access to the network and the utilization management piece of the plan. Has anything to do with the claim liability. It's just the true fixed nature that we bill the borough on a per employee per month basis.
And the overall claim liability might increase 8%?
Correct. And that's the, going from the worst-case scenario now for the overall group claim liability is roughly $1.8 million, and that would increase to just under 1.9.
And part of the reason for that being held to that rate is it some of it due to switching the carrier and then increasing the specific coverage?
Correct, that's part of it, and the demographic mix of the group, your past year's claims experience. When we go out to renewal, we provide the carriers with at least 3 years of rate history, claim history, and then they blend it all together, do their magic, and come up with a rate. And then what we also looked at was the New Jersey State Health Benefits Plan. And what I did is we compared our current plan with the Direct 10, Blue Cross Direct 10 plan, which is a in and out network plan. The state does not offer an indemnity plan like your plan is today in the borough. And an indemnity plan is like a traditional plan. There is no incentive for the employees to use a network provider or go towards a network. They can go to any provider, and the benefit is paid the same way. So the Direct 10 has an in-network where you'd have to use a selected provider base, and then if you didn't use the provider in the network, the benefit would then be paid as an out-of-network benefit at a deductible and then 70/30. So in your current plan, so we tried to match it as close as possible to the in-network, and the Direct 10, is very comparable that way. But your current plan is an indemnity plan, so there is no incentive for the employees today to go to a network provider.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Sure.
I wasn't really aware of that. That's pretty significant. Does QualCare have a offering where they have in-network and out-of-network, or?
Well, QualCare in our picture is just is the network, but sure, they have, I believe they have a couple fully insured programs that they offer to the, the general community as a PPO program.
Okay.
But for our purpose, you guys designed the plan the way it's negotiated, et cetera.
Right.
So if you wanted to institute that, we could and still keep QualCare as the network. I mean, QualCare is just a lease network for us.
But our employees today, they can go to any doctor they want. They submit it through QualCare, but...
For discounting purposes, and then it comes to us, and then we process the claim against your plan design. So right now, an employee of the Borough of Metuchen can go to any doctor, in or out of network, and the benefit is the same.
And I'm assuming you work with other municipalities?
Absolutely.
How rare is what we offer?
It's getting rarer. A lot of towns are moving away and from the indemnity-style programs because they are extremely rich. That's an extremely rich benefit. You want to have that incentive to drive the employees to the network so we get the best discount possible. We can manage the care a little better. But, you know, in the way it is structured today, you know, they have the freedom to really go anywhere they want.
At our last meeting, I asked what made our plan different, what made it richer, and you talked about like acupuncture, but you never mentioned this indemnity, you know, they can go to any doctor they want and we don't even have a PPO. So I just wanted to note that. I just find that really interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I figured you made, you know, I don't know if you're new to the council, but, you know, the plan hasn't changed in really 9 years that I've been working with the borough. I'm sorry if I took it for granted that you knew the benefit design, but it is a straight indemnity plan, traditional.
Well, we have over the years made changes to the co-insurance and the deductibles. It's always a process in negotiations with the unions. The reason that we've stayed with QualCare for the number of years that we have is that most of our employees, for most of their doctors, bump up against the QualCare PPO, and then we do get the discount on that. So it's not as though
And they are
that's
taking
not
advantage of it.
happening.
No, they do take advantage of it. I mean, there are some out-of-network claims, obviously. And we have people all over the country. So there are, you know, QualCare doesn't always reach into those areas as well, but we do have a wrap that they do get some discounts through another, I think it's PHCS on a national basis. But it's something to look at in the future for sure, is to restructure that, to really drive them into the network. And we have right now, we have 8 plans, Bill, I believe, with minor co-pay changes and other negotiated benefits.
But that has to be negotiated through.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, that's.
We just can't say, okay, here's.
Switch it,
let's switch it without being equal or better.
Correct.
So the Direct 10 Horizon through the state health benefits, that's an indemnity plan?
No, it's a PPO plan, but the in-network benefit is closest to what you currently offer here.
Did that number change from the last meeting? The 2,041,000? I don't have my stuff from the last meeting.
Well, it did change slightly because what I did is I adjusted the, well, what I did is because the state, it takes 90 days to get into the state health benefits plan. So figuring that if we had the meeting in May, you would then have to discuss internally, make a decision. So I figured June would be the earliest you could notify the state. Then you have 3 months, so that it wouldn't really go into effect till September. So it's the 3 months of 2013 rates, and then in 2014, I just guesstimated that, you know, the plan would go up 11%, and then 9 months in 2014 to get to that 2,041,000. So yeah, it's slightly higher, but only because I just prorated it out.
I don't have my other sheet, and when I looked at it, I said, boy, that number seems to have gone up.
Yeah, it went up about 150,000.
I'm looking at the same number from the last meeting.
It was pretty close.
Well, 2,041,045.
Can you explain what run-out liability and run-out processing fees are?
Sure. We're in a self-funded program, so the borough is responsible for claims that are yet to be reported, that have not been processed. So just guessing that, you know, taking 3 months of run-out liability for an average is typical, that it usually takes about 45 to 60 days for the cycle of a claim to be complete. So there's certain, if you terminated the self-funded plan, the borough is still responsible for claims that are unreported and not yet processed.
Right.
So that's what that $370,000 represents, and then the $25,000 would be just an estimated cost of what the borough would pay us to process those claims, and then once that is done, the self-funded plan ends, and then you would pay your fully insured premium to, the state.
Tom?
Yes.
Bill, if we were interested conceptually in going to a PPO plan, how many different bargain units would we have to negotiate with over what period of time?
We have three, and all of the contracts become due at different times.
And so how far out would that be, in other words?
Well,
roughly.
This is the last year of the Teamsters contract. The ASME contract, I believe, has another year after this. I could be wrong, don't hold me to this. And then, of course, we're in arbitration with the PBA. And
So it would
I mean,
probably
I will
take
tell
about-
you that every contract negotiation has a health care component attached to it in terms of the borough's negotiation. And as you know, we're currently in arbitration with the PBA, and there are health care components in that arbitration process. And
Okay, thank you.
So, just so I understand, the indemnity plan does not require them to pay an additional, is there an incentive for them to opt into a PPO or not?
No, not in an
Right now,
indemnity
no,
plan.
there's no alternative plan.
For example, I know there are plans out there amongst public employees, teachers, where if you were around and you had the indemnity, you can keep it, but you're going to start paying pretty sizable chunk of change in order to move people into the PPO. You can keep it, but you got to pay a larger portion. We don't have that?
Currently, no.
Okay.
No, but it could be offered. I mean, we could definitely set it up. I mean, down the road, if you negotiate that with the units, or
No, I understand. We
grandfather
gotta
a
do
certain
that for
class of
negotiation.
people, and then move forward as of a certain date, new hires would go into a PPO plan, let's say, and then over time, it would cycle through. You could do something along those
typically,
lines.
before I start negotiations, I'll have a conversation or a number of conversations with Mike to see what's going on in the rest of the public sector community, and also those items where we might, as you could say, get the most bang for our buck. And then, depending upon the group of employees, et cetera, then actually look at that as part of the borough's proposal.
Any other questions? Mr. Atkinson, do you have any other information?
No, that's it. I was just, just as talking with Bill last week, I mean, I would still go with the recommendation of moving it to the new carrier with the $60,000 stop loss, and other than that, at this time, no.
And so you're saying our worst-case scenario is a 9% increase?
Versus what our worst-case scenario is today, yes.
Okay. So it might be a little bit better than that, but
Sure, well, it won't get worse than that, but it could be better if we have a good year with claims, and the claims.
last year was not a very good year. We had a
Well,
couple.
we had a couple large claimants that really hurt us on the, which is why the reinsurance premium went up so high, because, they paid over $700,000 out on a couple of individuals. And, but overall, the group claim liability really pretty much stayed the same as it has in years past. It really didn't spike too much.
We haven't hit the worst case since the first year.
Yeah, no,
that
we
we
haven't.
started this years ago. So typically, of course, that's why you buy your reinsurance and all, so that you're insulated from catastrophic loss.
Right.
I just had another question. I kind of tried to touch on this last time, and you've described certain features of the plan as rich, and as I understand, at least from private industry, under healthcare reform, there are going to be certain penalties and increments you're going to have to pay if you have these kind of features. Do we face that prospect? And if we do, when are you going to be able to analyze that and let us know what the cost impact will be next year?
There's going to be there are some penalties in place, or not penalties right now, there's some taxes in place that will be coming down the line. The first one to hit, I believe, is coming up in July, which is going to be $1 per member, which is a belly button tax, if you will. So every person in the plan is going to be charged $1 that goes to a fund that's being set up. And then That's a 3-year tax, if you will. There's another $65 per employee reinsurance fee. Regardless if you're self-funded or fully insured, you're going to be charged that. So it doesn't matter who the carrier is. Everybody's going to be assessed that tax. And then there's another tax that you will not have to be a part of. I think they haven't determined if it's 2 or 3% of the value of your plan, which is going into another fund. But since you're self-funded, you're exempt from that tax. But the penalties right now, I don't believe are going to impact the borough, because I don't think we have any waivers at this time, or and I'd have to check with Bill on the salary ranges of the employees as well to do some testing for them, which we will do. But that doesn't come into play until January of 2014, so we'll have some time to do that analysis for you. That would really mostly impact your lower level paid employee, if you will. But I think with Chapter 78, I think you'll be all right with that because of the percentages of, because it's already set up salary ranged in the municipal government. In New Jersey, you have the Chapter 78, so if you're making $30,000 a year, you may be paying 2 or 3% on your health care. But if you make $150,000 a year, you may be paying 11 or 12%. So they've already tiered it.
I think it's a lot more.
Well, you know, I know they're a lot more than that, but I don't have the
anyway,
chart in
yes.
front of me, but I'm just as an
Yes.
example.
No,
you know.
we started implementing the program under Chapter 2, which was 2010, I believe.
Right.
And then that morphed into the Chapter 78, which we're in compliance with. And as our collective bargaining units, depending upon when they were ratified, come online, then those people are going to be switching over from the 1.5% to whatever the percentage is under the guidelines.
And when you said there was a tax of $1 starting per person in the
Yes.
plan. Is that per employee in the plan or per person covered by the plan?
It's, from what I understand, it's a per, if you will, belly button tax.
So
it's
if I
everybody,
had
if you had
5 people in my family, it would be $5.
$5, right.
Okay, if I had 1, it'd be
$1, right.
The borough pays that? Who's going to pay that?
The borough would pay that.
And where does that money go? You said it goes
It
into a
goes
fund?
to PORCA, patient, it's a research fund that is part of Obamacare. I can get you the information. I don't have the acronym completely, but it's a research tax to further medical research.
Okay, and I also had another question. What kind of incentives do the employees have to take care of their health, as far as, like, if they go to a doctor for a well visit and have a physical, and if they say need medicine for cholesterol, and if they do all these things, there's an incentive for them, but if they are not doing these things, they get charged more? Is there any component like that?
We do have a preventative care benefit that's 100% to the employee, so there's no out-of-pocket to the employee to go for preventative care, so that is there. I don't believe we have a structured wellness program for, you know, a little different here than in a corporate environment where you'll see a lot of those type of incentive programs, but there is a preventative care benefit. It is 100%, so there is, you know, that. And I think, you know, it's Bill's done, you know, we could do some flyers and wellness flyers to the employees just to make them aware that to go and, you know, do the proper thing to keep the health care costs down. I mean, it all is relative. I mean, that's the only way to keep your costs down, is to keep the healthy well and get the sick healthy, right? And it is through wellness and exercise programs, diabetes education, et cetera.
So example, a flu shot would be covered?
Yes.
And then we should be encouraging to get flu shots so that we have less costs later. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay. Well, we're at the point where I'm going to open it to the public. I'm going to open it to the public for any questions or comments. About anything. About anything.
My name is Frank Freibot. I live on Eckerd Avenue. And probably one of the few that watch Channel 15. I heard we're getting a new pumper at the fire department.
We're investigating that, yes, yeah.
Investigating. Do we have one?
Do we have it? No.
No, I mean, do we have one already?
Do we have one? We have three. One is an antique. It's
What's an antique?
1970.
1970.
Yep.
How many miles does it have on it?
It's not the miles, it's the usage in getting parts.
Well, you know, the town is what? Not even 2 square miles?
Mm-hmm.
Most of these fire engines are pulled out for parades. The Navy keeps its capital ships at least 40 years, and they're in salt water. And this is kept in, you know, firehouse. Is it really that decrepit?
I believe so. Councilman, you want to?
Yeah, you're the fellow that was talking about it on TV.
Yes,
What is
the council is at this present time considering a capital budget based upon recommendations that I had provided them. However, the council has not decided on whether they're going to embark on the capital projects that were enumerated in my recommendations. The budget is still subject to a hearing, which is going to happen in May. So none of this is set in stone at this point in time.
Well, I think,
What is the co-
yeah, I think what he wants to know is what's the rationale for a new fire truck?
The rationale is that the 1970 is an antique. We can't get parts for it. It should be taken off the road and should be replaced.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What was the manufacturer? White or LaFrance or? That one's a Mac. Mac. Right. And they don't have parts for Macs anymore? Not that old.
Your Honor, if I may, you know, I'm going to go on record and say, I've seen that truck in operation, I've ridden in that truck. It is long outlived its usefulness. It served the borough very well, but a 40-year-old pumper that's not reliable at a fire is not going to do anybody good. And I'm very comfortable with the fact, I'll tell you flat out, I'm comfortable with the fact that that truck needs to be retired based on standards, based on operations, based on parts, based on almost everything out there, and based on visual and participating in riding on it.
What do they do with the old truck?
I think we sell them, don't we?
Right. This will be salvaged. I don't think anybody...
There's not much of a market for it.
There's not a market for it to, you know, resell it to somebody.
Well, we won't see that at a garage sale.
No, I don't think so.
If you're interested in...
Dennis?
Yeah, actually, similar, I don't think you were here for the resolution we passed tonight. We do it at an open public auction or an open public sale for any property of the borough that's no longer needed for public purposes pursuant to statute. It's offered to the public for sale, and it's sold to the highest bidder.
Unless it's a part of the bid package where the
Yes, that they take
the
it away.
bidder will take the apparatus and pay a certain amount.
I never knew your name, but I always refer to you as the guy that looked like Wyatt Earp.
Bill, Chief Donnan wrote the council members an extensive letter. Do you have a copy of that letter on the rationale for the fire truck? I'm sure you would not object to making that public.
Let me give you a couple statistics, sir. The fire trucks don't just sit in the firehouse. Last year, we had almost 500 fire calls in Metuchen here.
Really?
Yes, sir. And this year, we're already way up above our average for this particular time. So they don't just sit in the firehouse and go out to a parade. They go out and do the job.
I understand that we were
Right.
good cover for other towns if they had really a big fire,
Right.
too.
We've been to Edison a lot.
That's true.
But they don't just sit in the firehouse. And the regulations that cover fire trucks, did you ever hear of the NFPA?
Is that
National Fire Protection Association.
What is that, insurance company?
No, sir. That's regulations that regulate fire departments. They recommend a pumper be kept only for 15 years, and at 20 should be taken out of service. So you can see the years that he's mentioning there, and if we were not to do this, and the ISO showed up, which they show up about every 10 years, and they were here about 7 years ago, so you don't have to really worry about
Well,
that.
what can they do to you?
Make your fire insurance go up an exceptional, could double it.
In other words...
They give us a bad rating.
Wait a minute, do they have just one fire insurance company? And
Nope.
ISO is
the Insurance Services Organization.
Right.
And they evaluate and set the I don't know what they call it, it's a rate. It's a,
Right.
and basically, that rating determines, when you get your homeowner's insurance, you know, they ask you all these questions about how far are you from a fire hydrant?
Right, yes.
Age of the house, all that is factored in with the equipment of the fire department. And I think what the councilman is saying is there is a potential that if ISO came in, changed our rating, it could result in a higher risk factor, so when you get a homeowner's policy, it'll go up.
What is the approximate cost of this, do you know?
The fire truck
Yes.
could be in the $500,000 range.
It's not cheap.
500,000?
That's a cheap one.
Yeah, it's an expensive venture, but if you look, the 1970 is how old? The nearest one to that is 1989, which technically should be, you know, brought down. It's at its peak, and then the one after that is 1993, correct?
What's that?
The pumpers.
Oh, it's the 89.
89,
they have-
and then...
89.
Do they have a number of companies that make these fire trucks?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I guess you put it out for the lowest
Yes.
bid.
No, we're looking at going through a co-op, which would help us to get the best price for us to get the best piece of equipment. Within reason. No, we're not talking about a Cadillac. We're talking about going through a co-op, which Council President today talked about a resolution to join the Houston-Galveston Co-op Association, which is free, which would then help us in getting a price which would be better than going with the lowest bid.
It's a
One other-
difficult choice. I mean, we struggle with, it's a big purchase, but we also have a responsibility to be sure that the equipment is functioning and able to respond when it's needed. And fire departments are difficult because a lot of people see it and say, that truck doesn't move a lot.
I'm just not finding it right.
But we need to make sure it's there and functioning when we need it and when the residents need it, and that's our biggest challenge. We don't take the cost lightly. We've had a lot of discussions about it.
I know, $500,000,
No, it's a significant purchase. And the one thing we have been able to do, as the mayor said, is maintain the equipment for extremely long periods of time in comparison to the areas around us. So we do share your concern, and we're trying to balance the need to have it with a reasonable cost.
I understand that, but we don't have 100,000 population like Edison or Woodbridge either.
We don't.
One other question.
And we have one fire department, they have 10 each.
Beg your pardon?
We have one fire department, they have 10.
10 houses.
One other question. When is a meeting going to be held for about Pearl Street?
When you say a meeting...
Well, open for people, or...
We've had one meeting already. We are...
Yeah, I know when the fellows were here.
Right. We are in the process now. The parking authority is looking to enter into contracts with them, and then we will have some other meetings after that. We were hopefully this week going to the freeholders to pick up the open space grant, but that's been postponed till May 2nd. So we know we're going to be getting roughly $1 million for the town plaza on May 2nd.
This is a done deal?
Nothing is a done deal. There isn't even a contract signed. They're going to have to come back. There's going to have to be ordinance changes, which we proposed here.
Let me ask you another question, Mayor. Is this going to possibly be put on the ballot?
No.
Why not?
It's not a ballot. We don't put any, we haven't used that for any development. We didn't do the district to be put on a ballot. We didn't do any of the other issues. The people here will make the decision on the ordinances, It will go before the planning board. Any changes in ordinances will have to come back here.
Doesn't sound very democratic.
We're the democratic representatives of the people.
Well, I don't see anything in the newspapers about this. And
There's been, if you've been following it, I assume for the past year or two, right? There's been a lot of coverage in the paper, and a series of public meetings. There will be additional public meetings. When they go, if the contract is negotiated, they'll be coming before the planning board with detailed plans, and that's a public meeting there. So there's going to be several additional public meetings. So you'll have, I think, were you here when we had the meeting in the chambers here maybe 2 months ago? When they presented the the initial idea?
Well,
or you saw it on TV?
2 blocks up, you have 2 of the oldest buildings in downtown. One's the Robbins Hall, 3 stories.
Yep.
You want to put up a parking garage twice the size of that? What's it going to do to the skyline? I moved into this town because it was a little town.
Sir, behind there is you know what's behind that parking lot?
Yeah.
Well, ugliest thing in town.
Ugly? At least the
Train
whole-
tracks and the what do they call it, catenary wires. So it's not like this is going to be dropped on Main Street. I mean, you think about it, there's a big, ugly blacktop.
I came down Woodbridge Avenue, made a right, went under the bridge to get here.
Yep.
Took me, I would say, between the 2 traffic lights and was a traffic jam downtown. What is this going to do to our downtown when they put another, was it 250 apartments?
Right.
At least 500 people, minimum, increase the population.
Many of which won't have the cars that we all have. How many cars are at your house?
I have 2, one for my wife and one for myself.
And most of the people might be want to live in apartments located near a train station, probably aren't going to have 2 cars.
Well, let me ask you
They're gonna
this.
move there because they can hop on the train.
According to the last meeting, they've been dickering back and forth for over 40 years with this?
Roughly
Least,
40 to
yeah.
50 years, yes. With the development of that Pearl Street parking lot.
What took so long?
That's a very good question, and I don't have the answer. I haven't been here that long.
No, I know you told me that you live in here almost 40 years.
Correct.
And what you liked about Metuchen, it's a nice little town. We drove through here. We were very fortunate. It was around Christmas time in 1994. We lived out in North Plainfield. I wanted to be closer to my work. My wife said, "What's going on here?" I said, "Looks like a parade." So we pulled into Bergdorf Goodman over here when they had the real estate
Right.
by the library. What a nice little town. I mean, in this urban sprawl, 100,000 people in Woodbridge, Edison, over 100,000 people, a little town like this. I mean, it's like out of a movie. I can't understand why you want to have a skyline like a miniature New Brunswick.
Sir, first of all, it's not going to have a skyline. Second of all, everything you described about Metuchen, we all recognize and love. That's why we live here, too. How do you think this town is going to survive?
How is
this town going to survive?
Not
Right.
with more stores there, because you have vacant stores downtown now.
But the
You have
idea
a
is-
traffic jam, and you don't even have this in here yet to begin with.
Right, but I think people fail to realize that this town won't just, you can't survive just by doing nothing, by not developing land like a parking lot that can be used for a greater return, and hopefully to stabilize taxes so that we can continue to live in our houses. People, I mean, I really can't understand how people who live in other neighborhoods, and I probably live near you, think that a parking deck and apartments downtown, next to the train tracks, surrounded by it's not a residential area, why I would be afraid how it's going to affect my neighborhood. It's not. It's going to enable the town to generate additional ratables so that the Metuchen that we know and love can continue to go forward. If we can, you know why it didn't happen for 40 years? Because maybe there wasn't the political will or the vision to do something that's going to help keep this town going. That's what this is really about.
Well,
So,
you know, Mr. Muldoon, you know, it doesn't sound like that to many people that are talking. Sounds like,
what is
Well,
that?
I disagree, and I resent your implication, sir.
no, I'm just saying.
This has been an open...
I understand that, Mayor.
An open process all through the thing. No one has their hand out, and no one will have their hand out with this project. Just like any of the other projects, whether it be the district, whether it be the Amboy Ave apartments that were done, whether it be Central Square. I resent that implication.
Wasn't an implication, I'm saying what people are talking about. Now, if you can't stand the heat, then get out of the kitchen. Harry Truman said that.
There's one thing to...
You know, I'm not finding fault with,
Sir, excuse me, there's one thing to say, reasonable people can have a discussion and disagree.
Yes.
But what you just did is downright offensive and
I'm
inappropriate.
sorry about that. But
Inappropriate. There's no place for that
Sir,
anywhere.
we live in New Jersey.
Sir, I live in New Jersey, too. I've lived here my whole life. I am so offended by what you just
I am sorry
insinuated.
about that, Mr. I can't see, from Camerano?
You know what? There's no place for it. I'm sorry, Your Honor. He's out of line.
Well, I'm sorry I offended you. Please accept my apology. But, you know, I just love this little town.
So do we.
So do we.
You know,
We want to maintain
we
it.
use the restaurants. The trees look beautiful. In fact, my wife took a picture to send to her sister that lives in Missouri, in St. Louis. They think because you live in Jersey, it's just oil refineries and the turnpike.
Right, that's what they think of
Well,
New Jersey.
and then
And that's why we've been very judicious in the way and the planning of this development and any other development that has come about.
how is this going to lower our taxes or keep them stable?
How is it going to lower or stabilize
Yes,
your taxes? Well, first, you're going to have people in the downtown that help subsidize and use the businesses, not subsidize, but use the businesses. You said there were stores open. I've counted. There are 11 stores from South Main through Central. By having this development, by having a town center green in the middle of town, which is what we just talked about, getting the government money, the open space money, it's going to be an additional factor to the life of people in Metuchen. The revenues that this will create from the parking structure, from the residences, are all going to help us in stabilizing our taxes.
Thank you. Sir, the only thing I would say, we've had a number of public meetings. I would encourage you and everybody you know who has an opinion on this, good or bad, to come on out, because we do want to hear it, and we have heard some, but candidly, we've heard a lot more in support.
I was over in Menlo Park the other day, and I looked at the parking garage here and said, oh, my God.
Sir,
And
take a
that's not-
ride down to Princeton. Go to Princeton and go look at their parking garage. You won't even know that it's there because it was so beautifully designed. It's wrapped around with stores and apartments. Princeton is thriving.
Morristown.
People shop there. And go to Morristown, the developer that the parking authority is looking at.
Yes,
built in
Morristown I know, because my...
Go to Morristown, go to Princeton. We have a very nice movie set town. The problem is people like to look at Main Street, but they don't shop there. They like to I was at a meeting, I heard somebody say people like to stand on their front lawns over on Grove and Egger and in other sections of town, and they like to say, we have a lovely town and we have a lovely Main Street, but that's all they do. They don't go there and they don't shop there, which is why the rest of us are here meeting after meeting saying support the town and shop, but no one, they just like to talk about it and how pretty the town is. So what study after study after study has shown is that the way that small towns can survive is if people are actually living in the downtown and walking to and from the train station and using the stores, not standing in their suburban backyard talking about what a lovely movie set town they live in. And I have to agree with Mr. Camerano. I'm new on the council. for you to come and stand at the microphone and stick your hand out. I've only been here 4 months. That's
I was only repeating what people said.
what people say
And think.
is ridiculous. And is there a time limit on individual discussions?
We usually don't have one, but Councilwoman, I want to thank you for your words, and Councilman Camerano, and all of you. Sir, you're welcome to come back when we have public meetings.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can I say a
When they're
couple things,
here,
Mayor?
I'm
and
sorry again that I used that as a thing, but I just wanted to make you people aware of what people are talking about.
And we're,
Now-
yeah, we're aware. We don't
Anonymous
think,
people on the internet don't count to me. If people want to say something, have them come here. But anonymous people talking on the
did.
You
internet
have me
don't
here
count.
because I don't know how to use a computer.
Well,
You could hold a gun in my head and wouldn't even know how to turn it on.
I have something to say, but I got to preface it with I'm very upset with you doing that gesture also, and it was uncalled for. But I've lived in this town for 72 years, before a lot of these trees grew up. And when the parking garage is there, you won't even see it because it won't even be as high as Robbins Hall.
I hope you're right,
A story
Mr.
in a
Wallace.
parking garage is nowhere as near a story as that building and each floor going up. That'll be back there, you'll be hard pressed to find it behind these buildings and with the shrubs and the other greenery it's going to put there.
Well, you
And
know,
and I
I'd like
talk
to-
to a lot of people in town. Like I said, I've lived here all my life, and I've never heard anybody say what you're saying tonight, negative about it.
It's a different thing from the 1940s, because that's when I was living there too. Not here, but up in Union. I saw what happened to Union.
Well, that's Union, that's not here. Different
I mean, they
story,
owned
different
most of the
place.
property, and they just got rid of it, and it just went
Well,
kaput.
this is Metuchen, this isn't Union, this isn't North Plainfield or anything, this is Metuchen.
sir,
And
I'd like to move on.
It's a
Is there any-
beautiful little town.
Is there anyone else from the public that has a question or comment? Hearing none, I'm going to close that section of the meeting. We have a public hearing on an ordinance.
proclamation first.
Oh, sorry, the proclamation is not ready, it has to be adjusted. Okay, so we will hold that.
Okay.
All right, so let's move to the ordinance public hearing.
Public hearing, all right. Katie, you have the affidavit of publication?
Said ordinance has been published one time in the Home News Tribune according to law on April 5th, 2013.
Could I have a motion to, sorry,
Yeah, motion that the affidavit be received and filed.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Katie, would you read the ordinance by title?
Ordinance 2013-4, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank.
Okay, Bill, could you just give us a little explanation of this for everybody and for the public?
What this ordinance will do is allow the borough to increase what is known as the appropriations cap, an additional 1.5% over the 2% that was set by law. What this does is give the borough an additional $164,535 that it can use to appropriate for the municipal budget. Actually, this is something that has been done every year. We do not have a problem with the appropriations cap. The current budget as proposed is $186,000 below the appropriations cap. However, there may come a time when the borough needs, for whatever reason, to extend the cap some. So it's prudent to do this. It doesn't mean that the borough has to spend any of this money, and as I mentioned before, the borough is not.
Thank you. I'm going to open it on this issue and this issue only. Hearing no questions or comments, closing that.
I move that the ordinance be passed on second reading and published according to law.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's a roll call vote.
Councilman Camerano?
Yes.
Councilman Grazel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Insero?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rasmussen?
Yes.
Councilman Wallace?
Yes.
Council President Muldoon?
Yes.
communications.
Oh, okay, I thought we were, all right, cool. The communication consent agenda?
Yes.
I move that the communication consent agenda, items 10 and 11 be approved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're at that point where we have reports from the council. Council President?
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a couple things. The Historic Preservation Committee met last week. May is Historic Preservation Month, and as we have for the past 2 years, this will be the third year that the committee is going to sponsor the Historic Preservation Scavenger Hunt. So it's a contest where people, I think there's pictures of 10 different items, architectural and historic elements of buildings in town, and people have to identify that, submit the form, and there's prizes. I think the Chamber of Commerce has donated chamber gift certificates. So that information will be out in May. It'll be on our website, and we've had an increasing number of people participating each year, so we hope that that will continue. The other thing, the committee is planning to have a public meeting to be scheduled, I believe, in June, to share some of the information that the research has been done for the past couple of years about historic neighborhoods in Metuchen, and in particular what we're calling the Middlesex Woodwild Park neighborhood. The historian that has been doing the last two grant research projects is going to be at the meeting and presenting information from the research and the history that she has been working on. So that, again, that will be scheduled sometime in June, and information will be shared on details about where and when that meeting will be. Parking Authority meets tomorrow evening. Mayor, you already sort of gave an update on the working towards the contract, finalizing the contract with Woodmont and the ground lease with Nexus for the parking deck. And so that won't be done tomorrow. They're still working towards that. And as you mentioned, the county hopefully approved, the freeholders approving the open space grant for the public plaza. And I think that's it.
Thank you very much. Councilman Wallace?
Thank you, Your Honor. Traffic and Transportation, Mr. Brown from the Borough Center, presentation is set for one of the May council meetings. May 19th is Metuchen Walking Day, and the Traffic and Transportation Committee was requesting that we designate October Pedestrian Safety Month, so either the last meeting in September or the first one in October, if we can have a resolution made to be read at that meeting. In regards to additional places to place the flags, they have a list, and they requested they be contacted to suggest some of these places if it's added to, or decided to add a few of them on. They'd just like to be consulted and brought up to date. New Jersey Transit's list of projects in town or around anywhere. Metuchen's not on the list for anything. The only Middlesex County town that's getting any New Jersey Transit money for something to work around their station area or that area is Perth Amboy. The only ones in Middlesex County that's getting any New Jersey Transit money. And that's all there is. The Recreation Commission didn't get to meet, and the Planning Board, last couple meetings have been canceled.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Rasmussen?
Okay, I already briefly spoke about the Shade Tree Commission checking the developments and making sure that the shrubs are going to be planted properly, so I won't go over that again. But Youth Services Board met, and one of the things that we did was we had a really lengthy and good discussion about the upcoming grant cycle. The state is changing the way the money is going to be distributed and what we have to do to get the money. Before, we just had to say that we did projects and had programs going on, but now that they want really hard data and they want us to be focusing on one priority. So we're in the process of picking a priority and then coming up with a way that we will comply with the grant, requests. And also, the Youth Services Board is going to be having the magic show at Campbell School at 7 o'clock, Friday, May 3rd. It's $10 for adult. One child is free with each adult. The proceeds will benefit the Metuchen Municipal Alliance. Please come out for it. You're going to have a really good time. And that's my report.
Councilman, just one question. Tomorrow night is a Youth Service Board meeting at, a countywide meeting, isn't it, at Middlesex County College?
Yes, there is a meeting there, I believe tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
There's the New Jersey Council for Drug Addiction and Alcohol Abuse is putting on actually a town talk for the entire county in Middlesex community. It's starting at 6:30. There will be essays read by students who submitted them, as well as some guest speakers.
And what's the venue, which location?
Okay, so it's at 7 o'clock at Middlesex County College. I think they're modeling it after our townwide talks here.
Right, that we made famous.
Which we started and made famous, yes. So all of you are welcome, and thank you, Mrs. Moskowitz, for your assistance. But I wanted to make sure that the public knew that they're welcome to come to Middlesex County College tomorrow evening.
And you said 6?
Yes, that's when people should be coming in and looking at various booths that will be there. There will be tables set up with information for all students, parents.
Okay?
Very good.
Okay. Councilwoman Insero.
I have a short report. The Board of Health meets tomorrow, Wednesday night at 7:30. The Senior Citizens Commission met last week, and today is tax day, and I hope everyone got their taxes in.
I got them in.
But the senior citizens did a very popular AARP volunteer program on Tuesdays and Thursdays the past couple of months, and I think by the end of today, they probably processed close to 100 tax returns down at the senior center. This Saturday is the Chamber of Commerce townwide garage sale. If you want to be in the directory, you have until 10 a.m. tomorrow to get your name in. If you get down to the chamber office by 10 a.m. and get it to Angela, you can be in the directory, or you can even register up until the day of the event. And while you're out shopping, hit a few stores on Main Street. And that's my report.
Councilwoman, I just wanted you to give an update to the public and the council because you did a lot of work recently on a grant. So just in a brief synopsis.
The borough worked with the Edison Greenways Group on a grant to a group called Together North Jersey, which is run out of the Blaustein School at Rutgers. And we submitted a grant for technical assistance aimed at looking at ways we can improve the greenway and also using it for tying into what we were discussing before with our downtowns. Economic development and greater cooperation between Edison and Metuchen, and tying together downtown Clara Barton, downtown Metuchen, and it's interesting that Councilman Wallace mentioned New Jersey Transit. The grant talks about using wayfinding so that people coming to the area to get to the Greenway from New Jersey Transit can access the Greenway, because right now, if you're in downtown Metuchen or Clara Barton, you don't really know that the Greenway is there if you're unfamiliar with the area. And this is a project that talks about sustainability and livability principles and having a more cohesive plan for regional development in North Jersey.
And it looks at ways to get us to connect to the Greenway.
To connect to the Greenway and also hopefully to expand it into the Dismal Swamp.
And thank you for your work on that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Grazel?
I have nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay, that was nice and quick. Councilman Camerano, hitting cleanup today.
It'll be very quick. We heard from the library tonight, so I won't elaborate anymore on that. The Pool Commission met last week and just continues to discuss staffing and improvements to the pool before they open. Today is the last day to get your application in without paying a late fee. I'm not sure if it's too late at this point or if they'll take a postmark. I'm not sure how that works. But today is the deadline.
I think the post office will be up until midnight, so...
Today is the deadline to get your application in without the late fee. and I think things are progressing pretty well with the pool. You'll see some improvements to the kiddie pool area when you go there. I think it'll be a very nice and safer environment. They did ban super soakers this year in the kiddie pool area, but, you know, can't have fun all the time, I guess. You could do that at home.
Okay.
It became an issue last year, so that policy was adopted. The EMS meets Wednesday night, so I have no report on that.
Okay. Just a couple items. I've invited Evan Robbins and the Breaking the Chain group from the high school to our May 7th meeting. I'd like to start at 7 o'clock, if that's okay with everybody. Allowing him 15 to 20 minutes. He has won they have won the check from the Cablevision for the Breaking the Chain project, and they will have a few students do readings, also some slides. If you're not familiar with the Breaking the Chain project, it's the Metuchen High School has been involved and has built a school in Ghana, has freed a number of children from slavery. The school has expanded with offices and some housing for their teachers. And it's you talk about community service and community, this is global community, and it's been ongoing for 7 years. In the last 3 years, he has won the money from the Cablevision. There's a smaller check that comes, and in this check, I forget how much it was, but thousands of dollars to be put towards that. And every dollar that they raise goes towards the project of freeing people and also providing for this school in Ghana. So it's a well worth thing to see if you're not familiar with it. The other thing is our meeting, we were scheduled to go to the freeholder meeting this Thursday, but that has been postponed till May 2nd, which we will then hopefully get approval for our town center plaza, the grant for that, and we will find out exactly how much money we'll be bringing back for that. I have applied for $1.1 million, so hopefully we'll be bringing home the bacon in that amount. But that concludes my report.
Mayor, if I could just mention with the Breaking the Chains, they actually have a fundraiser coming up. It's I think a 5K run or something. So if you go to Breaking the Chains through education.org, you can find out information if you'd like to contribute or if you'd like to sign up and run. It would be a great thing to do.
Thank you.
Mayor, before I move the consent, the new business consent agenda, just
Well,
to...
I still have the attorneys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dennis, you have a report?
I have nothing.
Okay. Bill? Okay, now you can go ahead.
Very presumptive of me. Just two quick things. I just wanted, I heard Councilman Wallace mention, but the Complete Streets presentation will be
Right.
scheduled
In May. I'm looking for the second meeting
Okay,
in May.
all right.
Because we have now we have the Breaking the Chain, and we also have the budget hearing on the 7th.
Okay.
So
make it
I'm
7th
looking...
or 6th?
Sorry, 6th.
Oh, 6th.
You correct- I said corrected. Yeah, on the 6th.
Okay.
So then I'm looking to go to the third meeting, the second meeting.
Second meeting.
Second meeting in May.
Okay, just want to make sure that gets scheduled.
Okay.
And before I motion, on our consent agenda, we are authorizing the health insurance third-party administrator and network, but just want to make a comment that based on, what we learned tonight, I think as we look towards next year, the following year, I think it is time to sort of dive in and do some analysis around the offering and consider some of the things that we talked about tonight. So I just wanted to make that statement before we move on to the consent agenda. Okay? All right, so I move that I'm going to move items 16 through 20. No, sorry.
21.
6 through 21 and number 23. Resolutions number 2013 -90. No. Oh, 9, okay, you're right, sorry. Yeah, you just pulled that one on me. Sorry, 90, 92, I'm going to read them all, 93, 94, 95, 96, and 98 be approved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And I move separately Resolution 22, which is a resolution number 2013-97, be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I thought we were going to have discussion.
Yes, there's discussion.
Oh, discussion.
I don't have discussion.
You just have, okay.
I'm just going to abstain.
Would you note
Oh,
that,
okay.
that the councilman is abstaining on that issue?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, so it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All righty.
Okay.
One abstention.
One abstention. Note, please note that.
Yes, Mayor.
Councilman Camerano.
And, Your Honor, I move that the bill resolution in the amount of $3,269,368.65 be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now I'm going to open it to the public for any questions or comments. Hearing none, I'll close that section of the meeting.
Mayor, before we adjourn, I just want to, in light of the events in Boston today, I just want to recognize that publicly here in our meeting and keep the people in Boston and all those who have been injured in our thoughts and prayers tonight.
Thank you. It's a very good thought.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for a very good meeting.